everybody. Welcome to another episode of Obscure Animation. This is the show where we look at underappreciated, independent animated films or ones that we just think are deserving of more love. It's so much fun. We've been doing it for a long time here. We love it. I'm film critic Rachel Wagner, and Stanford is here.
Hey.
Yes, and we're very excited today. We are talking about Mary and Max, and this is a film from 2009. It premiered at the 2009 Sundance Film Festival, and it won the Annecy Crystal Prize at Annecy Film Festival that year. It's directed by Adam Elliott. It's his first feature film, and that's pretty impressive. It's a stop-motion animated film, and it is based on a true story, which you don't see that often in animation. So, yes, is this a film that you had seen before?
No, when I started, watching it, a few minutes into it, I think I have seen clips from it, or at least some stills, based on just different, probably I read something online, some kind of animation website, or something. The character designs looked familiar, but I had never really pieced together, Adam Elliott and all the other components about it. So it seems strangely familiar. Again, I just must have seen some pictures or a trailer or something, but I've never seen the film.
I had never seen it either. I had definitely heard about it, and I had wanted to see it, but it was just one of those ones that I had never seen before. And I was so I was a little bit apprehensive to see it because a lot of times those like dark comedies aren't my favorite. But I don't know. It just depends on how it's done. Yeah. But I was just looking through Annecy winners to find something for us to do. And then I saw this one. I was like, oh yeah, we should try that. We should watch that. And because I love Coraline. I love Paranorman. There's plenty of those films that I enjoy. So yes, it's about this little girl named Mary, who's 8 years old. And she gets a phone book from, I guess, a library or someplace like that.
They're in a library or some kind of some kind of. So they're in Australia. They're in
yes,
yeah. They're like
in
some
Australia.
Kind of yeah.
And she starts writing. She wants to know where babies come from, so she writes a letter to somebody in America.
Then she just pulls out of this phone book. She just kind of does this random, this New York City phone book.
And she ends up writing to this man from New York named Max, who has tons of problems. He has Asperger's. He's very awkward, and they're both super awkward. And so they start writing each other as pen pals, pen friends, as they like to say.
Yes.
And and they have quite the relationship. What did you think overall of the film?
I was really glad I watched it, and thank you as always for the cool recommendation. I always love being introduced to these new films, as you know, and it's stop motion animation or no, regardless of the format. I think for whatever reason, I think some of these films about mental health are difficult. And also I think part of it is because they're so sad, almost more sad to me than some other kind of physical ailment or something, I don't know why that is, but anyway. So, and then I think, so I thought it was a tough subject matter, but handled in a really unique way. So, and I really admire the artistry of the stop motion animation and the creativity and ingenuity behind all of that. So overall, really an interesting watch, but not one that I would say, it's not pleasurable for me, but it was still a very interesting film, and I'm really glad I watched it.
Yeah, I think that's totally fair. I really responded to this film. I I think that stories about unlikely friendship are almost always a win for me.
Hmm.
I really am a sucker for stories of unlikely friendship because I think that's been more my life experience has been with friendships as opposed to like romantic relationships. And so when I see friendships portrayed on screen, it just really warms my heart. And it's not something you see as much. I mean, certainly not in my world where I cover rom coms and things all the time. To see a story just about this quirky, unusual friendship, and I was thinking about it that really most of my friendships are kind of like this in a way. That I mean, I'm lucky to have you and Jen as my friends in real life, and a few other
Yeah.
people. But I most of my friends are people that I have never met. And I mean, we're lucky now that we have technology that I've seen their faces and I've interacted with them, but I've still
Yeah.
never, it's still kind of that relationship, all different kinds of age differences, nationalities, ethnicities, races, just sexualities, just all those different things are my friends. And so I just felt like this connection to this weird friendship. And the ending was what really, we'll talk about it, but
Yeah, we'll get
ending,
there, but the
the
ending is
ending broke
something.
me. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, the
It
ending
was,
is yeah.
and so I really enjoyed it. I like I said, I'm not normally a huge fan of sort of dark comedies, but I liked so many details about this. You're right. I agree. The stop motion animation is so charming.
Yeah.
I mean, it's dark, of course, but it's also sort of charming.
Oh, absolutely. In fact,
Hmm.
I think that's really what adds to the charm,
Hmm.
the way the way it's done. The monochromatic palette and yeah, just
Yeah,
and just the character designs which are so uh I mean, I guess for lack of a better word, Rachel,
unique.
cartoony. Yeah, they're unique and really so full of personality and style. Very stylish. Uh, I
Hmm.
think Adam Elliott's got
Yeah.
a really wonderful style.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, he really does. And I loved the music
Oh, I
throughout.
did too. I love
It's
the
by
music.
Dale Cornelius. I thought, yeah, the music was so, again, charming.
Hmm.
It made you smile despite sometimes difficult stuff that you were
Yeah.
watching. I thought it did so much in helping keep the tone just right.
Yeah, I agreed. Yeah, the music really
Hmm.
uh, was a wonderful. I mean, it was used perfectly. Yeah.
Yeah. Because it starts out pretty rough. You find out about Mary and that her
I know.
mother is kind
Poor
of the worst.
Mary, this darling little girl, the Australian girl who's got a she it's I mean, her life is rough.
Hmm. And I guess this story is based on Adam Elliott's relationship with his pen friend in New York, who he has been writing to for over 20 years. So
Okay.
that's the true
That's interesting.
story
So that
of it.
he has a friend that he's I wonder
Hmm.
does it say that has he ever met his friend there in New York or
It doesn't. I don't think it says on the Wikipedia.
okay. Oh, that's so
It
interesting.
says it just says according to opening credits, film's based on a true story. Elliot clarified that the character of Max was inspired by a pen friend in New York who I've been writing to for over 20 years. So
Oh,
I
that's really
don't.
cool.
Hmm.
He can speak from
Yeah,
experience
yeah.
in a way, yeah.
So we learn that her mother Vera, she kind of hates her. She says that she was an accident and that she cooks and tests sherry. That she's testing out the sherry.
Yeah, it's so interesting have the film, because it's narrated basically by Mary, right? And how she perceives the adults in her life, and how she explains it. I mean, clearly the mother's a
Hmm.
drunk, you know, but I like how, yeah, how she describes it, with, yeah, with the sherry.
Yeah, and that her mom is. borrowing things from the store.
That's right. Put some in her dress.
She's an obvious kleptomaniac.
Yeah, a
She has
kleptomaniac
a
and
pet. Yeah, she has a pet rooster named Ethel. And Mary thought nothing nicer than a wet rooster, the sound of rain, eating sweetened condensed milk, and watching her favorite cartoon.
yeah.
it, I can't imagine just eating sweetened condensed milk.
I can't either. She's just down in these cans of sweet and condensed milk.
You have to wonder
Yeah.
how he thought of some of this stuff.
I
Wonder.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah,
But and then
because
she has a dad too, but clearly her
hmm
parents aren't together much. I mean, it seems like they're living under the same roof, but the dad's always he does taxidermy, right? He gets roadkill. Isn't that what he
yeah,
picks?
and
Dead birds.
yeah, and he works at the factory, the Earl Grey
Yes, the Earl Grey
factory, putting
factory.
string on tea bags.
Yeah. Yeah.
And she wants to someday marry someone named Earl Grey and live in palace and a castle and have 9 babies and a dog.
I know her little childhood dreams. I love that she wants to marry Earl Grey, or someone named Earl Grey. Is he
Yeah.
a Baron, Rachel? What is he? I can't remember what. He's some
With
kind of.
is it Earl?
Maybe he's
An
just an
Earl?
Earl, right?
Or is
Because
his name Earl?
he's dressed in some kind of royal gear, right? I mean, he looks like he's a prince. I guess he's an Earl.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She says her grandpappy swims the icebreakers for 51 years. And he's the first one to die in the story. And we should say this is not for children. This
No,
film,
this isn't this is a film for grown-ups.
yeah,
Yeah. It's rated
language
R.
wise, yeah, rated
Yeah.
R. Language wise, story wise,
Yeah.
it's not for
Yeah,
children.
not for kids.
So
And again,
then,
another interesting, I think, storytelling technique that Adam Elliott uses
mhm,
is clearly he's not even trying to make a movie for kids, although you could instantly see why kids might be interested in that because the character designs are so appealing, I
right,
think.
hmm
But yeah, once you get into it thematically, it's
yeah.
not gonna work.
It would be interesting to know more about sort of his inspiration for all these different parts. Like, what was he thinking of with the Noblets, for instance?
Yeah.
Is
Yeah, so
that
the Noblets is this animated TV show, which I think he's made up, right? It's not uh, and it will, there'll be more coming about the Noblets, but because cute little Mary, it's just, I mean, TV really is her only company, because
yeah?
her dad is non-existent in her life, really, and the mother is horrible and passed
And how
out, I think,
often
much of
it
the
seems
time.
like, yeah. And I feel like that's so sadly the case for so many children. I think that's why it is really important that we have things like Mr. Rogers or Sesame
Hmm.
Street, like really quality television,
Yeah.
because uh, unfortunately, just so many children are
Yeah.
raised by television, so it needs to be good. And I think maybe some it's they're raised by books,
Yeah.
but now more and more now, especially with streaming services, it's it's a thing. I mean, kids watch an incredible amount of television
Yeah. The
nowadays.
Noblets to me, Rachel, seemed almost like, um, even though we don't, even though it's kind of done in that sepia tone, we don't really know what colors these characters are designed in or whatnot. It almost seemed
Hmm
to me like it was kind of they're like the Smurfs in a way. I wondered. I mean, I don't know. Just I mean that style
Yeah,
of of
I
shows.
that's probably a good call. That's probably a good call there. The Smurfs. I was thinking maybe Fraggles, the Fraggle
Yeah,
Rock, but
yeah.
it
I think
definitely
that would work
Smurfs makes
too.
sense.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
just
So
to give
both Mary and Max.
context.
Yeah. hmm Both Mary and Max love the Noblets,
Yes.
which is their their
So that's an important point that
bond.
kind of that brings them together, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. And Max is an insomniac and he catches flies. That's his main things he
Yeah,
does.
he's got it. Yeah, he's got just a lot of issues. As you said, he's got Asperger's, uh, and uh, and I know some about Asperger's, but I don't know a ton. But he suffers from extreme anxiety too,
Yeah.
and those are probably related, but I think also they're kind of treated separately in a way too. But in the film, but
Hmm.
because that anxiety really um, is an issue with him.
I don't pretend to be an expert by any stretch of the imagination, but I do have a lot of friends who are on the spectrum. So I've gleaned something from talking to them a little bit. But it would be interesting to know sort of their perspectives if you're listening and you've seen this film and
Yes.
you have something to say about that. We would really appreciate your insight. I think it's a pretty uh, um, it doesn't try to make the mental health precious, which I appreciate. There's not I Am Sam, which is a movie I dislike immensely. Have you ever seen that with Sean Penn?
Yeah, I have seen that. Yeah.
Don't care for it myself. I just felt like that was very patronizing, that film. And so this is, oh, I just appreciate that. And maybe they even go a little too far, maybe on one extreme, but I appreciate that they're the attempts to kind of make it a real living, breathing kind of thing. And we're not supposed to be like, you're a hero, which I
Yeah.
like.
I thought it seemed very, to me, very honest
Yes, that's a good word.
with with both Mary and Max
Hmm.
because Mary suffers from some things too. It's not necessarily Asperger's, but I think she's suffers from depression. At least that's how I see it. I don't know if she necessarily gets a quote unquote diagnosis, uh,
Right.
but she goes through a lot, and
Hmm.
uh, yeah. So and I think again, just like for guess for lack of a better word, just feel like she has to suffer a lot.
Yeah.
It's very sympathetic. I felt
And
very sad about what was going on with her
mhm.
life.
And they do such a good job in this movie of painting a picture, both with obviously with the animation, but also with the narration. Things like Mary's eyes or the color of muddy puddles.
Yeah.
Like that's so well done. You get
Hmm.
an immediate idea of kind of what's going on here.
Yeah.
And so Mary has to write to an American to find out where babies come from. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so Max gets the letter, and he has been going to Overeating Anonymous. And he says that had trouble understanding nonverbal signals. And, and, and then he says, after staring out a window for 18 hours, I decided to write back, which I think it really, again, sets your characters. You kind of know exactly what you're talking about here. And she tells her that babies come from rabbis, priests, or prostitutes. You're an atheist.
Yeah, so these letters that they write to each other, because I just love that narrative device that that is used in this film. That so each time they're writing a letter, it gets narrated by the character. Um, Philip
Yeah.
Seymour Hoffman is the voice of Max, which I thought was
Oh, really?
yeah, if it's Philip Seymour Hoffman, if
Oh,
I'm not
yeah.
mistaken, and
Yep.
uh and then again paired with the brilliant animation, you really get a sense of this, again, this what's going on inside the mind of this character. And uh Max types his letters. Mary writes them
Right.
on paper as an
And it's like a
8-year-old,
weird typewriter. It's not your ASDF
Yeah,
typewriter.
yeah, I was noticing that too, and I don't know what was going on with that, but still, It's an old one. Maybe it's just because given
Yeah.
its age or something, or yeah,
Yeah. I don't know when the ASDF became the standard,
yeah.
but uh, she writes, and then he writes back, and her mother throws it away, but it's saved from the trash, luckily enough. And so because Vera was not impressed by this letter, and so she tells him to send the letter to her neighbor. That the neighbor's legs were chewed off by piranhas in World War II, and he is afraid to leave his house. Uh,
So she helps.
and
She's almost like she's just like this cute little helpful neighbor. She's involved. I think that's how she
Mhm.
makes her human connections. In a way, is just trying to be of service to the
Yeah,
neighbors, and yeah,
it kind of
but
reminded
then that
me
ends up
of
helping
Matilda
her.
a little bit.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it kind of. Yeah. Mhm. And I like her birthmark is like her special, because I actually, you can't really see it that well, but I actually have a birthmark on the top of my head too. I don't know if you can see it, but
Oh yeah, wow, okay.
um, yeah. Where is it? Like, anyway, I have a birthmark on the top of my head, and it was like my when I was little, it was like my Mikhail Gorbachev mark, because he had a big birthmark on
Oh
top of his head.
yeah.
Mine's not as big as his, but um, but then Max says people often confuse me, and I think that anybody on the spectrum can probably relate to that sentiment, I would think. And he said, "You said you have no friends, neither do I." She asks him, "Why do people tease me?" And teacher says she should smile more. And so her mother draws a smile on her, like the Joker.
Yeah, she looks
And
like the
then,
Joker.
and then she says, "I don't think my teacher likes me anymore." was, and she says, I better go now. My tears are smudging my
Yeah, and
room.
so it's interesting. So yeah, it goes from kind of this humorous stuff to stuff that's really heartbreaking,
Mm,
with how these people are suffering,
yeah.
and by bad poor treatment and sad situations. Yeah.
Mhm. And it's something I can definitely relate to, because I was bullied when I was little. My parents had to take me out of school when I was in fifth grade because it got so bad. And so they put me in private school. I actually went to the Reed School. I don't know if you ever heard of the Reed School, but it's in
No.
Salt Lake. Yeah, it's a really great little school. And I remember when I first went in there, and the Mrs. Reed, who was the head of the school, she gave me a big hug, and she was like, "What a beautiful young lady." So we
Just
were
what you
like,
needed, right?
"Yeah,
Just
right,
yeah.
yes." It's still around, as far as I know. I think the Reed School is still going. So it's over in Mill Creek.
Well, yeah. So okay, so
Yeah.
interesting.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And so he tells her that he has three goals: one, to make a friend; two, to have all the noblets; and three, to eat lots of chocolate. Did it make you want to have a chocolate hot dog?
Oh no, those look disgusting, but I love that. It's like his special recipe, right? He put some pieces of a chocolate bar in a hot dog bun, and it was
That
and
just seems very dry. I feel like you would need
yeah,
like
it just didn't seem
frosting,
good,
like
but
marshmallow or.
I know exactly they would need something else. Uh, but Max loved him, and I think they brought him comfort, and
Mhm.
but yeah,
Yeah.
and then also, I think a lot of this is viewed through the eyes. He's seeing a psychiatrist, right? And so
Right.
he often recounts in the letters the way the psychiatrist is analyzing his life, and then he kind of repeats some of that, so you get these different viewpoints of what his doctor is wanting him to do, and anyway, the poor
Mhm.
guy, he
Dr.
suffers.
Bernard Hasselhoff.
Yeah.
Yeah. and he tells her that do not worry about not smiling. My mouth almost never smiles, but that doesn't mean I'm not smiling in my brain, which I loved.
I love that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really really good. And so yeah, she wishes her neighbor Damien would be in love with her, and then she asks him about love, and that's what he says. Your letter triggered an anxiety attack.
Yeah. So he has this major anxiety attack. And is this the point, Rachel, where he stops writing her for a period of time and she really goes into a funk? Or does that maybe that happens a little later, but at some point,
Yes,
at some
yeah.
point,
So he stops writing for because he's institutionalized for 9 months,
yeah.
and so meanwhile, Mary wondered and waited.
And
She
was
can,
kind of taking it personally, right?
Mhm.
Like just thinking, oh, he doesn't like me anymore, or whatnot, and and that's heartbreaking
Yeah.
too.
He's also been going to these Overeaters Anonymous meetings, and during that time, there's this woman who he says kisses him without his
Yeah,
permission.
who likes him, who's very aggressive with him, and yeah,
Hmm.
never asked permission. Yeah,
Yeah, which I mean, I don't know if you wouldn't have that in a movie like this today, or if it's just that it takes on a whole kind of different meaning. I mean, it was obviously always a serious thing, but I just feel like now with Me Too and everything, that like something like that is like way more stands out.
yeah, yeah, for sure.
Like it's not just like, oh, that was funny or something. I think there was a day and time where something like that might have been humorous,
Yeah,
but
but
not
yeah,
in.
and from current societal standards today, it's that woman crosses the line, yeah, yeah, with her aggressive
So
behavior.
but I missed what he said that there was manslaughter charges that were dismissed. What manslaughter charges? I missed.
Um,
I should have just rewound it, but I
no, that's
wasn't sure
yeah,
why.
because he didn't kill anybody, right? Was he somehow involved? Was he somehow either a witness to something, or um, was there some kind of accident that happened? I'm trying to remember,
Yeah,
Rachel.
some kind of an
Uh,
accident. Just sort of jumped to it, and I didn't understand what he did to cause the manslaughter. If it was just released from the institution, then I'd understand that. But
yeah.
anyway, I was a little confused about that. But I, he ends up winning the lottery. His numbers finally come up.
Which I love that happens because yeah, you learn early on, because part of his life is the routine of it, right, and the pattern, following this pattern, and he's always buying these lottery cards, and he picks the same numbers every time. He never changes the numbers he picks, and so
Which
he
is a good
finally
strategy,
wins.
really, when you think about it.
Yeah, yeah,
That eventually, it's certainly a better strategy than changing it because then your probability uh, isn't as good. But he buys all the chocolate that he has a whole
it's like storage unit
storage
of
unit, yeah.
chalk.
And he gets the complete Noblets collection. So two of his life goals are done.
Yeah, yeah,
And I think that that's good to have simple life goals. Like it's good to have a couple that are really going to be a reach, but it's also good to have a few that are like, I can do that. I'll
yeah,
focus on
yeah,
that
exactly.
too. Just things that will just give you joy that you know you can accomplish.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you have a lot of collections of various things.
Oh my
What would you
gosh.
say is your like ultimate collection? Your
Well,
most prized?
I'm see, the thing is I have so many interests. I don't necessarily have, like, a collection, like, I'm not looking for I guess the only thing that I have that's truly complete, I own a physical copy either on Blu-ray or DVD of all 59, or excuse me, all 58. I don't have one for Raya yet, of all the Disney animated canon.
Mm-hmm.
Uh
Yeah.
but I love die-cast cars, and I love baseball bobbleheads, and
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
You
and
have a lot of artwork.
books. I love,
Mhm.
yeah, I love art and I love books. So, um, but I wish I had something kind of finite, just like, oh, this is the thing that I just love. Um, but I don't.
Yeah. I mean, I have some things. I have there's not really, I guess, a finite number, but I have my Mount Alexander doll collection, half or more from my grandmother,
Oh,
or were
cool.
given to me by her. So
Yeah.
they're really special. I have a bunch of Little Women and Scarlett O'Hara dolls. And so I really love those. I'd be very sad if something happened to them. And that's one of my biggest ones, my biggest collections. But yeah, I do have a ton of DVDs, books, things like that. But uh, yeah, so it's fun. So I appreciate that about Max. And so he wills everything else to his neighbor Ivy, and then Ivy donates it, leaves it to a cat shelter, who then the owner takes it for everything. So they it is a pretty cynical movie. They probably could have leaned a little bit less on that cynicism, uh, but anyway, I guess it's like the Joker of animated films, except actually is good.
Yeah.
And it says Mary had given Max a taste of real friendship, and there just was no comparison. So
Yeah.
good. So he actually gets the diagnosis, and he says, I prefer Aspie for short. I do not feel disabled or in need of a cure. I like being an Aspie, which is very sweet. Very sweet. And I loved this part. He says that he has his own words, which one of them is confused.
Yeah. Confused, which I thought was a really, it was perfect for his character. Yeah.
And then snert, which I think we should resubmit because that is a great word. It's when snow and dirt become one.
Yeah.
Snert.
Nerd.
I think that is very solid. And then smushables, which is the bottom of grocery bag, they get smushed together. And then she mails him her tears. Her
I
tears,
know.
yes.
She puts her tears in the bottle. That's
Yeah, it was.
kind of tender.
Her tears were the best gift he'd ever received. He said inside his brain was smiling.
Yeah.
And I also like, he says, why was he considered the odd one when everyone else was considered normal? And so then her father dies, and then her mother dies.
Hmm.
And she decides to go to university, and she's studying Asperger's to try to help Max. But then she re-meets with Damien, and they end up getting married. And so that's kind of fun.
Yeah, and as adults, so Mary is voiced by Toni Collette as when she's an adult, and then uh Damien's voiced by Eric Bana. I don't know if you saw
Yeah.
that. Yeah, kind of a cool,
And
Australian cast.
yeah, and so she writes this book on Asperger's, and she uses Max as her case study, and she sends him the book. She's super excited about it, and she's going to come to New York, and she's really excited, and he gets very upset about
Yeah,
this.
it really offends him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, to the core, really, doesn't it? I mean, it really, yeah, really
Because
makes him.
it's this whole idea of not needing to be cured, not needing to be healed. And she sends him a bottle of, or a can of noodles with I'm sorry on it.
Yeah, because does he stop writing her for a while too? Again, after that, or yeah, there's another break in their relationship.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
she just becomes like a total mess. She's on the floor. She can't function.
Well, yeah, and this is this happened at the same time, but I mean, she's suicidal.
Yeah.
You know,
She's
she's so
left.
she's so yeah. Damien leaves her, and she's devastated with
Yeah.
everything, right? I mean, she lost Max, she loses her husband. Um, Yeah.
because he says your idealistic quest to get rid of mental illness is misguided, and or Damien says that your idealistic quest, and he says, I hope your heart can heal and we can be friends. And so then you have her. Yeah, she almost hangs herself.
And at that point,
The
she also realizes, or at least it's revealed to the audience, that she's pregnant.
Right.
Yeah.
And so then Max decides, he sees the can, decides to send her his collection of noblets and just let her know he's forgiven her. And it sits outside. So the neighbor ends up having
The
the
neighbor who
courage,
was scared to go outside, who would take the mail in.
yeah, to go and get the package. And he finds her and he saves her. And she sees the box, and it says that it says Max stopped to count the stars. He felt complete. The world was back in balance. And that's when he says, when I received your book, my emotions were out of control. The reason I forgive you is because you are not perfect, and so am I. All humans are imperfect. And I thought that was so beautiful. I think that forgiveness for me is one of those themes that really almost always rings true for me, because I just think it's the hardest thing when we feel wounded, to let go of that wound, you
Yeah.
know? And even though obviously it's not a religious story, I just think that is when we can have the courage to forgive other people for the wrongs that we feel. It's just such a holy concept, I think.
Yeah. Oh, I agree. Yeah, I really like that aspect
Yeah.
of the story. Yeah.
And he
Because
says,
they
and
did, it wasn't religious. Yeah, as you
yeah,
said, but it's so important, in
yeah,
life.
and it's so hard when you feel those wounds,
Hmm.
and letting go of it and turning it over to God or whatever you believe in, moving on with your life. And he says, when I was young, I wanted to be anybody but myself. If I was on a desert island, I'd have to get used to my own company. That's what the shrink says. I would have to accept myself, warts and all. We don't get to choose our warts. They are a part of us, and we have to live with them. We can, however, choose our friends. And that's so beautiful to me. I think
Yeah.
that is like the journey of a lifetime for all of us,
Yeah.
is to accept ourselves the way, and it is good to try to improve ourselves, but there also has to be that acceptance at the same time.
Yeah.
And he says, I am glad I chose you. So
I
good.
know, right?
Yes, we get to choose our friends. And it says, everyone's lives are like a sidewalk. Your sidewalk is like mine, but probably not as many cracks. You're my best friend. You're my only friend. And that's when Mary comes to New York with the baby, and she finds Max has passed away that morning. So,
Yeah, that's such a heartbreaker. Uh in a way, I thought it was a cathartic and probably the best way. Not the best way, but I didn't hate the choice,
yeah.
that the creative team made on it. Of course, it was sad, and I had wished that they could have. I just kept wishing that she would go to New York
I
and they'd help each
know.
other in a way, but
I
uh,
know.
but still, there was still something about the letter relationship that was so satisfying. And then, but it really was sad that, yeah, but I love how she was at peace with it,
Yeah.
you
It was
know?
sad, but there was also some poetry
Yeah, there
kind of
was.
behind it, I feel like, too.
I totally agree. Yeah.
That she was able to be there for him. I mean, it would have been really nice if she had gotten there just before he died so she could be there with him when he died. I
Hmm.
kind of wish that had happened, but still.
I loved how she was able she was able to sit by his body and hold his hand and look around the apartment. She could see those shelves. I mean, basically the main thing he had on his wall, he had a mirror where he had put her initial drawing of herself that he just kept there, and then those little shelves where he put all the Noblet figurines that were empty, because
Yeah.
he had sent them to her, so but she could see it, you know. And
Right.
anyway, I thought that was meaningful, heartbreaking.
Yeah, it was really good. It was beautiful. And yeah, I don't know, just that ending, I was a wreck when I mean, even crying now just thinking about it. That
Yeah,
that we have to accept ourselves, warts and all. It was beautiful. They did a great job with the
yeah.
writing. I think is just beautiful in this movie, and so I really enjoyed it. I said on Twitter that this would probably now in my top 50 animated films. I'm going to be doing my top 50 animated films ranking
Oh,
coming up in a
cool.
couple of weeks. Yes,
So
I
fortuitous that you got to see this.
I know. I haven't done it since 2015, so it's going to be extremely difficult.
Oh, that'd be hard. Absolutely. Good luck with that, Rach. You're gonna do great, I know, but still, that's
It's going to
hard.
be challenging, but I'm excited. So yes, this movie would get. I gave it a very good score. I don't know, at least a 4 out of 5 for me. An 8 out of 10 at least. I just really responded emotionally, especially to that ending. And I just thought the animation was so great. And it's just amazing what these small independent animators can do.
Right? I know. I was just so impressed by that. And you know, even just all like that set he had of both of New York City as well as
Yes.
the little street in Australia, where they lived. I mean, they didn't, vary a lot with the scenery, but it was still beautifully lit, and and the way that it was filmed. And again, I was so impressed
This
with the
this
use
film
of
didn't even
color.
cost two. Yeah, me too. This film didn't even cost $2 million.
Yeah.
That's one
So
point seven million dollars
it's
US.
just this labor of love that Adam and his team,
Incredible.
are able to. And what I read too is that he's not interested in any commercial work. That he just does his own thing. He makes these shorts, and I think he's got another feature and currently in
Hmm.
development, or in production. And um, good for him, because I had wondered if he was doing some commercials on the side, or something, you know. Uh, to
Hmm.
kind of keep the ball going. And I think he's just very dedicated to his art.
It's very impressive. He
Yeah.
kind of like Don Hertzfeldt in that regard, I think.
Hmm. Yeah.
So, well, I really enjoyed it. I'm really glad we picked it. So,
Yeah. Thank you
let
for
us know
picking
if
it,
you have.
Rachel.
Yeah, and so let us know if you have seen it. Let us know what you think, and if you like it, we'd love to hear in the comments section and on Twitter. That would be really fun. And if you have any other suggestions for underrated, obscure animation that we can talk about next month, let us know. That would be a lot of fun. And Stanford, where can people find you?
On Twitter, I'm at Stanford Clark, and I have a movie podcast and blog at moviespastandpresent.com.
Great. And you can find me at Rachel's Reviews, all over social media, iTunes, YouTube, and on Rotten Tomatoes. So check that out. If you are listening on iTunes, please leave us your ratings and reviews. That really helps us out so much. And if you're watching on YouTube, please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. We really appreciate that. We also have the Hallmarkies podcast, so make sure you check out over there. And we're going to be doing more Talking Disney coming up this month, and a lot of other fun stuff. So make sure that you are subscribed. And thanks so much. And we'll talk to you all later. Bye, everyone.
Bye.